Hey everybody, Jason Burmis here for wearechange.org, and we are going to get into a huge breaking story that really Hollywood does not want to talk about regarding Nickelodeon and Dan Schneider of Schneider's Bakery, a man that has created huge television shows for kids. I was really unaware of who this guy was up until a couple years ago when there were a lot of internet, quote-unquote, rumors buzzing about Dan being inappropriate with children. Now, before I get there, because this is a big story, and we really want to go into it, where it might go, and what we do know. Remember, this is the creator of iCarly, which is huge with kids. Kenan Thompson of Kenan and Kel was discovered by this guy. He was actually, I didn't really know him from this. He was an actor back when I was a kid in the 1980s in a show called Head of the Class. Now, again, we're going to get into all that, what may be coming, because it's a huge move what Nickelodeon did yesterday, okay? And some of the details still are not public. Again, I'm wondering where it's going to go. But I wanted this story first because it's going to lead into the next story. Now, this is a sex cult that was kind of in my backyard, Albany, New York, and these guys were living in Clifton Park. The NXIVM cult. And this guy is named Keith Lanier, and I encourage everybody to read this article that I have in front of me from the Times-Union, the local media. Okay, it's very telling, and on top of that, it has the actual documentation based on the warrant that they got probable cause for because he was extradited from Mexico. Now, Jason, what is this? What are we talking about here? Now, this guy was kind of like, think about a Tony Robbins type motivational speaker who would get people who wanted to better their lives into his organization. And, at first it looks like that's what it is. Sure it is. And they're using things like neuro-linguistics programming, but at the same time talking about ESP and other mind power. So it's all about the power of the mind. So there is this kind of quirky cult-like science to this. Now, NLP has been used by people like Tony Robbins. It was really created by a guy named Richard Bandler, and you see it in use from guys like Darren Brown as well. And I encourage you to check it out because I do believe to some extent neuro-linguistics programming does work. It's really the power of suggestion, using your demeanor, cues to really get your message across and almost read somebody's mind. So I wouldn't call that ESP, so that's very disingenuous. People like Penn Jillette have called NLP utter nonsense. So there's a lot up in the air. Anyway, he was also running multi-level marketing schemes, also something you see with these type of gurus. And basically, you've got to read this thing for yourself because it reads like an episode of The X-Files. I don't know how else to describe it, a master-slave relationship, but that's not all. You see, where did they pick this guy up? He was in Mexico, and he'd flown out there to meet somebody who is in this master-slave hierarchy. And in this warrant, it's described that Keith had his own master. So in other words, he was a slave to somebody else. Again, I don't really want to talk about the sexual acts that were performed. Trafficking is alleged in this. And, they compromise everybody. As you join this thing, they're taking sexually explicit photographs, videos of you. They're getting you to confess to things on video, true or not, is in the affidavit. So maybe you made a story up, but the way you're telling it, it sounds very real. And who knows what kind of dark things these people were talking about. Now, again, the whole affidavit is there for you if you want to read it. And I encourage people to read this thing. But they pick him up in Mexico. Okay, in Mexico. Well, he's at a billionaire heiress's house. In fact, they refer to her as the heiress from the Bronfman family. Okay? And, they're talking about financing through her. The question becomes, how involved is the Bronfman family in this? They're the billionaires to the Seagram's fortune. Are they involved in the sex trafficking? There's very little in this 22-page affidavit, other than kind of this, trafficking slash master and slave relationship. Well, back in 2010, Vandy Fair did an article on the heiress and the cult and the two Bronfman sisters that were associated with Lanier. Okay, and they kind of make it out like they're victims and the rest of the family's not into that. Is that actually the case? And there's Lanier about 8, 9, 10 years ago. So it's very extensive. I want people to read this for themselves. But Jason, why did you start this with Dan Schneider and the Hollywood Nickelodeon child sex allegations that have been around forever, and begin it with kind of what doesn't seem to be the trafficking of minors? Well, it's really the Hollywood angle here, because this cult had Hollywood women in it. See, they were promoting your careers as well. He was telling you you were going to make those connections. And a Smallville star brought Allison Mack, another actress, into this cult. And, he was living in Clifton Park. He was flying some of these women from L.A. So this is yet another one of those pay-to-play relationships that involve sex, okay? It's not news that Hollywood abuses people sexually for favors, to get into films, to be casted, to go to castings, okay? It's very, very dark. And so that's why we wanted to start with that and now get into Dan Schneider and the end of his relationship with Nickelodeon. Nickelodeon has cut ties with the iCarly creator, Schneider, after alleged abusive behavior. Now, I'm going to let you guys read the allegations for yourselves, because they're alleged allegations. But let me tell you, they're not great. All right? Dan Schneider, there's an article out there that is basically this blog posting of what everybody seems to know is a Hollywood insider. Now, some people have described this Hollywood insider as actually being Robert Downey Jr. Whether that's the truth or not, I don't know. But I can tell you that, I can tell you that it is a very, very disturbing account. And this guy is behind some of the biggest shows they've ever done. The Amanda Show. He discovered Ariana Grande, who has a pop career to this day. There's some very disturbing pictures of him and Ariana Grande when she is a preteen and teenager. Okay? You're going to want to watch those for yourself. I'm not going to bring them up here. It's too much. But apparently they gave him a $7 million payoff. And that's unfortunate, because, they still paid this guy off on the way out. Did he do something so egregious? Or are there going to be allegations surfacing that many people never thought would come to light? I guess we're going to find out. Okay, that is the real question. But to show you how rampant this is with young actresses and child actors, let's take a look, okay? Bella Thorne. This was in January. This was kind of brushed under the rug. During the Golden Globes, she was sexually abused at age 14. And she's not naming her abuser. Now, whether or not this was, a relative or something like that, we don't really know. She doesn't go into that much detail. But she's been abused. Now, let's look at somebody like Amanda Bynes out of the Nickelodeon machine. The Breakdown story. A lot of people forget that from years and years and years ago. But I encourage you, again, why are these Disney actors constantly breaking down, going to rehab? Why are there allegations that they're being peddled, trafficked, if you will, as youngsters? Now, again, you're going to have to read that stuff for yourself. You type in Dan Schneider into Google, Dan Schneider scandal, you're going to read some things that are extremely disturbing. Well, Jason, how does this keep going on? Well, I just told you that Keith Lanier and his cult seem to be backed by the Bronfman fortune. Well, that's pretty amazing. He's got a billionaire heiress that's in his cult and financially supporting him. Well, that's why I want to get to this news right over here. Billionaire Harry McLeod's estranged wife claims he searched for child pornography on his computer in their latest divorce papers. Now, why is this important? Well, it shows you that the business of sex trafficking, the business of abusing children, is out there for people that can not only afford it on a regular basis, but can afford to do it without any repercussions from the law. And that's very upsetting. That's very disturbing. That's something that has to change. And that's why we do this here at wearechange.org. Over at the main channel, Luke is releasing an amazing video today out of Africa. You're going to see more and more reports like this one, like the one Luke put together. But the bottom line is, folks, that we aren't going anywhere. We're going to keep up on this Schneider story, especially see where it goes. But if you have information about this abuse, whether you signed a non-disclosure agreement or not, that's how the cult member Keith Rainier is now trying to sue and intimidate the people that have brought these allegations against him. And he's not the only one. People within this cult are obviously defending him. It's a cult. Okay? It's a brainwashing operation, and it's one with powerful resources. And I would tell you right now, cults like that are extending into Hollywood and into your homes via children's programming. So folks, please share this video on social media. Hit that like and subscribe button. Follow me on Twitter at Jason Burmis. And remember, folks, be the change you want to see in the world.